So cool. Let's get started.
Welcome to another episode of Marketing Tips for Doctors. I'm your host, Dr. Barbara Hales, and today we have with us Stewart Gandolf. Stewart is a very interesting person that I think you would enjoy meeting. He's led healthcare marketing programs for over 3 decades. Today, he is the CEO of Healthcare Success, which markets multi-location practices, health systems, telehealth, and more. Welcome to the show, Stewart.
Thank you so much. I'm really happy to be here and look forward to talking more, Barbara.
How did you get into this program that you're in? How did you get involved with it to begin with?
So it's actually a fun, I think, at least my point of view, a fun origin story. I fell in love with marketing in undergraduate, left engineering, which, for good and ill, fell and decided I wanted to work for agencies. And so I worked my way up to J. Walter Thompson. And we worked with Bally Total Fitness back then. It was an $80 million account in the 90s. That's a huge client, even by today's standards, let alone in the 90s. But I was really disillusioned with the whole thing, the big agency world. And I was very ambitious. And my print sales guy was making a whole lot more money than me with a whole lot less stress. So I decided to take a detour and got out of the agency business and went into commercial real estate. Timed it perfectly with the industrial real estate recession in LA of the 90s, the
Oh,
riots.
no.
So, meanwhile, there was this company that kept reaching out to me through a writer I knew that marketed doctors. And remember, I was doing $80 million account. So I was like, doctors, how do you make any money doing that? And so I initially said no. And another year went by and I got hungrier. And I said, okay, I'll do this for 6 months. We'll see how it goes. And I ended up staying there for 10 years and became VP of marketing. But Barbara, the interesting thing was that was an amazing experience that I wish I could just unplug my brain and give it to other people, the knowledge and experience I got from that. So what happened was 5 weeks after starting this new job, I found myself in Denver at the Embassy Suites, and my job was to lead a group of doctors for 3 days on marketing, a workshop, an interactive marketing workshop, and 5 weeks of training. And of course, I already knew marketing really well. So for what I didn't know, and by the way, I'd never spoken publicly in my life. So that's kind of a little stressful when you have to speak for 3 days and you never spoke before in your life. Um, but I had the knowledge base behind me and the confidence that even if I didn't know everything about healthcare, I knew about marketing, and it worked great. They liked me. Oh, fun fact too, Barbara. I was stuck in the elevator on the way to my first speech. It's like as if it
After that,
wasn't
everything is
stressful.
easy.
Yeah, so it wasn't stressful enough. But so then, and the model we had then is, is an they call it content marketing then, but we would sell a newsletter through direct mail to doctors, and this is when the whole field was just beginning. So marketing, well, I'll come back to that in a sec, but it was a brand new field, really. Nobody was really doing marketing in a very smart and organized way. And so we would sell a newsletter about marketing for $100, and then they would upgrade to the seminar, and then they would upgrade to agency services. So during those 10 years, I averaged being on the road twice a month, leading these seminars, sometimes more, sometimes less. But there's nothing like that experience of working with every specialty, every kind of doctor. By the end of that, I could finish their sentences for them. So it was because it was an interactive seminar. And then I also led the big session, the general session as well.
What were the biggest challenges that you faced when starting out, and how did you overcome them?
Well, when I was starting out, like in terms of finding clients, that wasn't an issue because I was just going to teach the seminar. I would say the biggest challenges were what I learned during that process was, first of all, it was super exciting because, again, it was a brand new field. Like marketing was illegal until 1977, the Bates and Osteen versus State Bar of Arizona case. It was led by an attorney who wanted to market. So there's also some FTC things, but basically, if and where, even then, doctors didn't think it was ethical. So they may be legal, but they didn't think it was ethical. So when in those early days of the early 90s, that was still only 10 years later, 10, 13 years later. I mean, there was rules in the books that you could not have anything more than a 3 by 8 sign on your door with your name on it. That was your marketing. That's what you're allowed to do. Um, and in fact, doctors would call on other doctors, if they felt they were doing anything unethical, they would call the state boards on them for running a yellow page ad. So this is very different than it is today. The So during that period, a lot of what was we dealt with was, think about this, Barbara. People would pay money to come and see me speak, and then argue with me, you can't do that. It's like, yeah, you can. But it was such an opportunity, tremendous area of opportunity because nobody was doing it. Those that did aggressively market found just tremendous opportunity. And there are out there to this day, there's some practices we worked with, and they had 4 locations that have 1,000 today, and they still do the same things we taught them 20 years ago. So it's pretty amazing. So I would say the challenge then would just be convincing docs to market, help them understand they can do it more ethically and effectively. And also, and you probably still face this in your business today, the concept of ROI, that it's okay to spend $1 if you get $4 back. Like that was such a foreign concept. We don't spend any money on marketing. I don't need it. Like, why are you here? You paid money to get here. So it was just a different world back when I was doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, how did you convince doctors that they needed marketing?
So my little tip to people that are working in healthcare is doctors respect smarts and experience and expertise. They don't respect sales pitches. So, like if you're and one of the things that I've spoken to tons of different groups, and like think about like an insurance sales guy. If all you come to the doctor with is stuff they already know, and they're like, get out of here. I saw that on Susie Orman. Like that's nothing. They're not interested in hearing the same rehash sales stuff. In fact, they're very, very anti-sales. So what worked for me, I mentioned earlier that I knew in 5 weeks I got up to speed pretty quickly on the most important things. And we did that one specialty at a time. So this week I have dentist, I learned about dentistry. This week I have orthodontist, I learned about orthodontist. Um, but the thing that really worked for me was that I was good on my feet. I was quick. I like to think I'm pretty smart. And I just knew a whole lot more about what I do than they did. So once you build that trust, then they were sucking information out of you. One of my colleagues at the time would joke, they would follow us to the airport to continue to suck our brain after the seminar was over. So, it was such a thirst for information, and we were at the cutting edge of that. I mean, we really were at the time. So it was a lot of fun, and that really worked for me. So another way of looking at it, Barbara, is credibility, credibility, credibility is what it takes to help doctors to influence them. Because until you have credibility, they're not hearing you, honestly.
Sure, that makes sense. What are the top strategies you've used to market yourself effectively in your field so that doctors knew about you? And how do you think that they could be adapted for healthcare professionals in private practice?
So it's really funny. I mentioned earlier we were doing our newsletter, upselling to a seminar, upselling to agency services back in the day at this other company. And that was before the word content marketing existed, but it was a form of content marketing. It was just offline instead of online because we were selling a newspaper, we were selling a newsletter. So when I started this company, by the way, fun fact, it was a hobby. Um, I had moved on after I became VP of marketing. I was there 10 years. I decided I'm like this, Barb. I decided I'm going to take a leap and do something completely different. And so I left the business for about 3 years. I was working in the world of high-end estate tax mitigation for billionaires. And most of the time I'd starve. And then I paid off my house with one deal. So it was kind of fun. But at some point I felt like I was leaving all that expertise in the fallow. Really was expert at what I did. And it kind of was a bummer to just like walk away from that forever. So my former partner reached out to me and said, "Hey, do you want to start something?" I decided, like, well, why don't we start a company? But we're going to do something nobody that I knew of at the time had done. This is 2006. I'm going to start a marketing agency, and it's going to be all online in terms of our client acquisition. So the fun fact was what they now call content marketing, we were doing before that term really existed. So I, for example, went to dental economics and they gave me a column. So now I started writing for dental economics. I went to medical economics and I created a CD series that they distributed and we sold and profit shared on. I wrote a blog the first day. So we really started building. I mentioned earlier credibility, credibility, and credibility. We leaned into that because that just fits my personality. We leaned into content, and to this day, we have about at one point we had about 20,000 really active newsletter subscribers on our email. Today it's more about it's shifted. So we have 20,000 LinkedIn followers and maybe 5 or 10,000 email subscribers because the world has changed, but it's still very much about content. And for your listeners, if they're looking for free marketing content, my website's full of resources, and then they can come straight back to you and have you help them. But we have a lot of content, right? We have, blogs, podcasts, ebooks. Literally, I can't tell you who. I just got off the phone a few minutes ago interviewing, well, I guess I can say this, talking to somebody from Press Ganey who I've had on my podcast before. We're talking about my next interview, what it's going to be about. So it's like that kind of, knowledge base and leaning into it. And another little bonus tip on this. Um, so the world of SEO is changing right now. And so for the doctors that are interested in doing this kind of stuff with your help, I believe is a tremendous um, valuable asset because SEO has changed because of the AI overviews and because of perplexity and all these other things. SEO has really changed. So what we're going to see is a by building thought leadership will help you show up on search engines as well.
Still with me?
So cool. All right. So go ahead.
Yay. Okay, so we were talking about um, content marketing.
Yep. So at any rate, I think that the content marketing, building thought, I think it's broader. It's building thought leadership first. So content marketing is part of that. So for example, let's say, you're working with a gastroenterologist that is, publishing papers and all that. That's still part of thought leadership. It may not be really content marketing, but a lot of times there may be opportunity where somebody wants to publish or is already publishing, but none of their patients know any of this stuff, right? So it becomes it needs someone like you to help build, that thought leadership and take what they're already doing and distribute that message. So I'm assuming you probably
Absolutely.
do some of that. And that's, another thing that might be helpful to your listenership. There's a huge misconception with still to this day a lot of doctors where they confuse the word marketing with advertising
Yeah.
or pay per click or SEO. Marketing, of course, is much broader. And Barbara, like when we talk about this to clients, we break it down into 6 categories. So we refer to marketing as including branding, of course, digital marketing, of course, traditional advertising, which is a forgotten expertise. But on top of that, we refer to patient experience and internal marketing as a category, doctor referral building as a category, and PR, meaning press releases and um, crisis management and community events, all those things. So those 6 categories are really marketing. And so when we're working with clients, we think about all those categories. Now it depends. Some clients just come to us like, no, no, we really want to spend X thousands of dollars on paid search. And, we usually we're working with multi-location businesses, Barbara. So it's kind of enterprise oftentimes. They have a CEO, they have private equity backing or whatever. Sometimes they just want, paid search. But then um, other times they really want to like talk about, things that are harder. So another example today, this morning, I would talk to a German device manufacturer that wants to break into the U.S. market. And, we're talking to them about how to build their brand and take it and make it appropriate for the U.S. market, how to build sales systems appropriate for that, all those things.
Yeah, what what I find is really important nowadays is video marketing, which really lends itself to the medical market because doctors can show the devices they use. They could show the type of symptoms that a person might have, who would be a candidate for it, et cetera. So there are so many opportunities for video marketing in a health field.
We love video marketing, and what's great is I look at it, Barb. I'm curious how you think about this, but first of all, there are for easy stuff, a lot of times at a practice level, it's going to be difficult for an agency to come out and cover your health fare, right? It just doesn't make economic sense for anybody. So bring your iPhone, and a lot of times there's someone on the staff that's pretty good with their phone and can record the event. Obviously, take HIPAA into account and all those things. But you can do guerrilla stuff with an iPhone. As we're speaking today on the podcast, my internet connection is terrible today. So I'm not using my usual setup. I'm actually using my iPhone with a ring light with my cell signal, which is not ideal, but it's better than nothing. But that was pivoting, right? So using an iPhone for basic stuff is really helpful. And then professional photo shoots as well. So for example. One of my own podcast guest wants to come out and have me shoot not just a regular podcast, but he wants to have an in-person video podcast. So I can hire a shooter I know, or a director of photography to shoot that. So we often use a combination of professional produced video, um, guerrilla video. And then there's even people out there that specialize in doing either remote or on-site doctor interviews. And I'm assuming you have resources for that as well.
Mhm.
So there's, figuring out the right level of video for what you're doing. It can be content, it can be we've done many, many commercials, kind of all across the spectrum.
If a doctor wanted to improve their marketing today, what is one quick and impactful strategy they should implement immediately?
Well, I can look at this two ways. The one thing that's free is that they can do that cost absolutely nothing that they still don't want to do. You can argue forever, is to ask patients for referrals. Like I've been teaching that now for 30 years. It still works. They're like, well, I don't feel comfortable. I understand why they don't want to do it, but asking for referrals costs nothing. So if they're really getting started and they have nowhere else to go, that's a place to go. If they're a specialist, they could just start talking to the people who refer them business and get to know them better. That's something they can do pretty easily. And then the other thing, though, is that they really want to do, more of advertising, marketing, invest. Usually, not always, but usually paid search is going to be the fastest way to nirvana. Um, you know, I, we're a Google Premier partner. We do a lot of paid search. Paid search is something we not do. We don't do with every client. It doesn't always fit. But if you're looking for one thing, and the reason why I like paid search for a lot of doctors, and again, this is, you have your clients, and I'm sure you have your choices how you do this. But for us, the advantage of paid search is it has massive control. Instead of hoping and praying to get on Google, here's a fun line that I've stole years ago, Barbara. You can pray for clicks or you can pay for clicks. So I got that at an internet seminar once years ago. And it's really true. So you can try to build up SEO over years, or you can start showing up on Google instantly. Now that's changing right now with the advent of AI, but it's going to continue to evolve. But still, you can drive all those billions that Google makes. Most of that is from paid search. So when doctors tell you, "Oh, nobody clicks those ads," like, well, I have 40 billion a quarter to argue otherwise. So paid search, just because of the nature of it's instantly on top of Google, you can control the budget, you can control the time of day, you control what the ad says, you control where you send them, you can control whether you have ad extensions, like so much of it is controllable. And then you can test it and then it scales. So if you're looking at advertising, often, not always, that would be the first place I look, but not always. It depends.
What's a common mistake that health professionals make when trying to market themselves? And how can doctors avoid it in their practice?
Um, Frankly, chickening out too fast. So, well, there's actually a couple. So I'd say number one, giving up before you even start. So we get calls, and you must as well, from doctors that want to start, and they're like talking about how can I cancel after it doesn't work in 30 days? And my answer respectfully is don't do it. If you're looking at the exit so soon, then it's just not something we can handle as an agency. But honestly, I don't think you should do because you're so focused on the exit, it requires time. Doesn't require forever, but it requires at least 6 months to a year if you're really trying to get something going. And so that would be a number one thing. Number two, I would say I'm going to give you more than just one. Number two is not looking at it from an ROI standpoint of view, looking only at the cost, not the benefit of it. That's a really crucial thing. Number three, I would say this depends, but especially in our world, um, not having anybody on the other side that can actually do stuff. So we can delegate a lot of the marketing to outside firms or consultants like you, or agencies or whatever, but there still has to be someone that actually do stuff. So for example, on a larger scale, we've had before a 20 location business hire us, and the CEO is our only contact. It's really hard to get anything done. They're not going to be good at chasing down the copy, getting consensus internally. So those are just some of the things that can get in the way.
That's true. So before we end the show today, is there like one additional tip that you could give our listeners that they could implement right away and feel good about advancing?
We've already covered some of my favorites. I mentioned paid search. I mentioned, I would say, okay, so a couple quick tips is in addition to what I just said. One is to make sure that your website is ready for prime time. That, so many people still to this day, most people at least have a website, but there are so many that are the opposite of appealing. So I had someone reach out to me yesterday, and they had a website, but what they were offering and what they were selling was on too fringy for us. It kind of felt like a little quacky, but fortunately for the consumer, it looked a little quacky. Like it didn't look like it was credible. But that happens with, um, established medical practice as well. It doesn't build confidence. You need to make
Right.
sure it's your front door. And what you're not even understanding typically is, nobody complains about my website. It's like, well, that's because they didn't call you. Yeah, right. People that thought your website sucked they never called you. That's why you're not getting the feedback. They called
That's
somebody
true.
else. So I would say that's number one. Number
Yeah.
two, reviews matter a whole lot. Um, oh, another one that's huge is your phones. Like the phones in 95% of practices are horrible. You finally get someone to call you. Doctor's office, please hold. And that used to work 25, 30 years ago ish. It never really worked well, even then. But today, people have too many other options. They're hanging up left, right, and center. So if you're wondering why you're doing marketing, nothing is working, the first place, second place, and third place I would look is your phones. And then finally, I'd recommend they get expert help from someone like you, right? Like, honestly, I feel like there is a, um, and doctors will tell you there's sometimes a little bit of a hubris, like we know everything, but it's like this is its own thing. If you want to be serious about it, it really helps to have somebody who lives the world every day.
Absolutely. I find it amazing, really, that in today's day and age, that there are doctors that don't actually even have a website.
Yeah. It's funny because and some will be fine with that. If you're an employed doctor, obviously it's not an issue, or if you're a subspecialist and you have a waiting list out that's years. But even then, I still like let's pretend I'm a pediatric rheumatologist. I would still want a website to make the parents feel more comfortable they've been referred to me. If nothing else for that. So, because you still have to communicate to patients. What would your patient encounter be like if they had a chance to study you before they came to you versus, well, my plan referred me to you. I guess I got to come to you. So even in the case we have plenty of patients, I would argue it's worth, it's like this is your business we're talking about. If you're truly in business, you need to invest in it. You didn't decide to cheap out on not getting a sofa, right? Or a chair. You need to figure out, like, to me, it's an expensive doing business. And I'm not saying that because we sell websites, right? We do websites that are more enterprise level, but there's plenty of people out there that can do websites affordably for you if you're a smaller business. To me, it's table stakes to having a business.
Right. And there are people that put a website up, like 10 years ago and haven't refreshed it since then.
So
And
that go, yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt, but that goes
it's
back to
okay. What
exactly what
what
I
I
said.
tell
It's
them is like if a prospective patient goes on a site like that, then there are only two or three questions that they're asking. They're asking like, is this practice still in existence? Did the doctor die or move or retire?
yeah,
It's or it could be still in practice and his website isn't up to date or his medical practice is up to date.
Exactly. So people, I'll leave you with this thought. People judge what they can't see based upon what they can see. So one of the lines from my seminar many years ago, but the metaphor I use is, and it's a true story, I was at a popular upscale Cuban place, and then I saw a cockroach run across the floor, and that was it. It's like, I can't see what's going on in the kitchen, but I did see the cockroach. That has ruined me forever. I am no longer interested in this restaurant. We used to go there a fair amount. So it's like people are making a decision based upon a bad website's the cockroach. Like they are looking at you, they're evaluating you. If it's 10, 12 years, another thing you said is really great, which is they assume you're out of date and they will. They're not going to tell you that though. They just call someone else.
Yeah.
So
Well,
anyway,
it's been a pleasure speaking with you today, and this has been another episode of Marketing Tips for Doctors with your host, Dr. Barbara Hales, speaking with Stewart Gandolf. Until next time.